Steve Jobs died on October 5th, 2011, and today, 7 years on, we still remember it like it was just yesterday. Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel. This is Pradeep. If this is your first time here, please don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you never miss a video. Let's get started. The first stat that I want to draw your attention to is the fact that the iPhone accounts for over 60% of Apple's annual turnover. To put that number in perspective, that's $120 billion. That's more than Amazon.com and all its subsidiaries make in an entire year with one product, the iPhone. Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone in 2007. The second stat that I want to call your attention to is the fact that last year in 2018, Apple became the first US public company to cross the $1 trillion market cap. Again, to put that number in perspective, the entire economy of Canada is worth $1.8 trillion. So Apple is worth more than half of Canada. Tim Cook was the CEO of Apple when they reached this milestone. He had been the CEO for the last 7 years. The final stat that I want to call your attention to is an interview that Tim Cook gave to Bloomberg in 2011 at the Steve Jobs Memorial Service. He said, "Steve Jobs told me, never ask what I would do, just do the right thing." Let's look at this from Tim Cook's perspective first. It is incredibly hard to fill the shoes of someone like Steve Jobs. He has been described as a modern day Edison, a Leonardo da Vinci, and that's just by people who did not like him. Look at what Tim Cook has had to go through. You have the San Bernardino iPhone shooter unlocking scandal, you had the racist treatment of people of color in Apple stores in Australia, you have iPhone sales declining for the first time ever. People are constantly comparing Tim Cook to Steve Jobs, and it is absolutely insane. I have no qualms in saying that there is no person alive who could have done a better job in continuing Steve Jobs' legacy than Tim Cook. Next, let's look at it from Steve Jobs' perspective. He was many things, but he was definitely not humble. He knew that Apple was incredibly successful, and it was because of his genius. He had incredible foresight. Cancer is a difficult thing to ignore, and he knew he was going to die. So he did a wonderful thing by telling Tim Cook to not worry about what Steve Jobs would do, but just do the right thing. Not a lot of you would know this, but the context in which this entire conversation came about was in the context of Walt Disney, a company which ever since the death of the man who had drawn a mouse on the back of a tissue paper and founded a multi-billion-dollar company was in a sort of Walt Disney hangover. They were constantly asking what would Walt have done in this particular situation, and it was driving everyone insane. We as founders and executives will have to make a lot of decisions in our lives, and we need to stop worrying about what the previous generation would have done and rather just ask, what's the right thing to do?